That time I got reincarnated as a demon lord, English, by LordedoMal44. 30 Darkness. My vision went black for a second, or would that be better defined as my vision turning red? I felt like I was an angry bull, and everything around was red. Everything was my goal. Despite that, there was only Ifrit here for me to vent my anger, for me to destroy. Less than warning. Individual Rimuru Tempest is trying to evolve into Mega Slime. Trying. Error. Cannot evolve into Mega Slime. Greater than. Have I ignored the words of the sage, or is it the voice of the world speaking? I don't mind a bit now, but I think I'd better figure out the difference between the two later. And, while I was thinking about that, I shot my own body towards Ifrit. At first the Spirit of Flames stayed where he was, perhaps thinking he didn't have to fear a physical duel against a slime. But he thought wrong. As soon as my body made contact with Ifrit, my battle spirit triggered and a huge explosion was created from the contact between my body and his body, throwing Ifrit to the ground with an absurd force. Stunned for a second, Ifrit looked at me, purest confusion expressed in his eyes. Big mistake. Gluing one end of the sticky spider thread to the ground, I propelled my body back towards the ground with full force. Ifrit, who wasn't expecting this, only had a second to dodge, but even if he was able to avoid the main impact, the explosion still sent Ifrit flying. Less than warning. Individual Rimuru Tempest is trying to evolve into Mega Slime. Trying. Error. Cannot evolve into Mega Slime. Greater than. I ignored the sage, and this time I got a little angry with her. Doesn't she see that I'm in the middle of a battle here? I have to kill that bastard Ifrit and get Shizou back. Less than. Greater than not caring about the consequences of what might happen, I turned off the sage's alerts. I had serious things to do, and she was getting in my way by announcing a fact that doesn't have the slightest importance. Turning my attention to Ifrit, who, seeing that I was about to attack, tried to open the distance between us with his flight, I prepared to catch him. Ifrit will suffer no little at my hands, that's something I promise you, Ramirez. I will kill all of yours. As I prepared to attack Ifrit once more, a question popped into my thoughts. Who is Ramirez? Why would I want to make her pay? That moment of distraction was enough. Ifrit immediately created one more attack and launched it at me, a ball of concentrated flames, just like before. I prepare myself to take the attack, just like before, and then I would. Less than dodge. Greater than following Sage's prompt, I jumped up and with all my strength dodged the ball of condensed flames. As soon as the ball of flames touched the ground where I had been just a few seconds ago, unlike the things I expected to happen, the sphere of fire continued at absurd speed, creating a shockwave that swept dozens of meters around. Even I, who had dodged the attack for a good distance, felt how the shockwave passed through me and dealt me a small amount of damage, on top of my physical attack resistance. After all, what just happened? Less than warning. Fire spirit magic was just fused with explosion magic, which created new magic. The heat power was reduced, but the explosions were even more intensified. It is recommended to evade all enemy attacks, greater than. Understood, Sage. Thank you for the advice. If it wasn't for you, then I might be minced slime by now. Less than. Greater than. Why do I feel like the sage is angry with me? Less than wrong. This is your imagination. Greater than. Okay, she sure is pissed at me. Better think about it later. With that in mind, I started to dodge the Ifrit's mixed attacks, avoiding the exploding flames as much as possible. I don't have any regeneration skills, at least not a fast one, and even if I could use Predator for that, it would take up my best card. For now, I'd better focus and forget about secondary matters here. Now, with the sage by my side, I felt my mind calmer than before and I wasn't seeing red anymore. More than that, the annoying notifications had stopped, so I could fully focus on my fight. With that, I felt like I could win. Regardless, now that I think about it, I have something to ask of you, Sage. Less than. Greater than. Rimuru was in danger. It wasn't a question, not a statement in my head, but a feeling I felt deep in my heart. I couldn't even feel anything with my skills, which should have alerted me. I just felt that he was in danger and that I had to help him. And then, No, not only me, all of us who were inside the city felt that the pressure intensified a little, far from the city. This power, It was similar to that of a higher spirit. As soon as the thought crossed my mind, I thought of the worst-case scenario. What if this is Trainee who, after taking the first defeat, has returned? And this time, would the Dryad be using a higher spirit of fire, Ifrit, in order to defeat Rimuru? Rimuru had said that Trainee wouldn't wake up for at least 3 weeks, which is to say we still had 2 weeks left to get stronger, but if for some reason he was wrong or she got better a little faster than we expected, then, she came to kill him. Gobuta-kun. Akami. Prepare your troops and leave for Rimuru-sama's position as soon as possible. We can't waste time. Understood. That was a risky decision, but I had no choice. Taking weak people should only end with their deaths, many more deaths than would be necessary than if we were stronger, but that's better than doing nothing and letting Rimuru end up dead. They wouldn't like that either, and I'm sure every one of them is willing to lay down their lives for the master who named them. In the end, that's how monsters are. As the two started running to go gather their troops, the troops that were training while they were trying to acquire a unique skill like rigor, I started to run towards Rimuru's position. The person who would be most useful in this fight must just be me, the only one he hasn't named and who doesn't fully serve him. It's like a joke, doesn't it? As a mage, I am the best option when fighting a spirit creature such as a Dryad. Also, because I have the most power in the city, after Rimuru and maybe Ranga once he manages to improve his skills a little more, I'm the only one who can fight side by side with him. Or so I thought. Before I even reached the city gates my body froze, breathing suddenly became heavy and I felt my whole body trembling. Murderous intent. Pure and simple murderous intent, with no trace of skill or magic. The air had only brought out magicals that were charged with a person's purest emotions of anger. It was just the feeling, but it was suffocating, and it was like I was being watched by a wild beast far beyond my own level. If that's all it was, then fine. When a powerful creature gets angry, that kind of feeling is to be expected. But it was not just that. Those were Rimuru's magicals. That was Rimuru's anger. That was Rimuru's fury. I tried to move my body, but I couldn't. The feeling was very similar to being trapped inside water, and when you try to move the water prevents your movements from flowing normally. That didn't seem like Rimuru. Hey, what's going on? What's up with everyone? And what's that feeling? There's something very strange in the air. I turned around, seeing Kabul, Guido and Iran, who were standing next to me. They were quite confused, not knowing what was going on. Well, it makes sense, considering humans have terrible magical sensitivity. Even though they were adventurers, they were weak, and such was their weakness. Their magical sensitivity was non-existent. I looked around, trying to understand what they were saying about the others. A scared look probably came over my face. Everyone around me was still, but they weren't just still. Their faces seemed to be twisted with rage. Their bodies were shaking as if they couldn't contain themselves properly, and scariest of all, their magic aura was out of control. They were as angry as all the polluted magicals in the air. The feeling of darkness in the air, darkness that came from Rimuru, was affecting every monster in the city. Hey, why are you standing there? Come on. Let's help Rimuru-sama. That's it. We're going to finish off whoever messed with Rimuru-sama. I turned to see Gobuta and Akami back with their soldiers, their expressions as twisted with anger as everyone else around us. Their soldiers also had those expressions, and their mounts also had the kind of faces you'd expect from a rabid monster, the kind that promises death and destruction to all that moves. I couldn't help but get scared. What kind of unholy skill is making this happen? Whatever it is, it has to stop. At the current rate, everyone will. Before I could finish thinking that, the magicals I was sensing in the air just disappeared, almost as if they hadn't even existed. All the anger, all the hate, that atmosphere that promised it would kill the world, all of it just gone. I looked confusedly at Gobuta and Akami, and saw them with the same confused look as me. It was as if they didn't remember what they had just said a few seconds ago. Even their soldiers, or the people around them, everyone just. They had lost the darkness that seemed to have haunted their hearts. Hey, can you hear me? Rimuru? Rimuru's voice came into our head for us, all of us and not just me, through his thought transmission. Shizu got out of control on the hill near the city. I'm handling the situation. My orders are that no one comes. That goes double for you, petulant coon. I'll handle this situation. And with that, Rimuru disconnected our minds, having delivered his message. He had just said that, and I could feel, even from a distance, that his battle had resumed on the mountain. Uptight boy. You better come back in one piece. With the message delivered, now it was time for me to deal with the spirit of the flames that decided to mess with me. I didn't care anymore if it was a higher spirit of fire or anything like that, just defeat him, right? Like I did with Trainee and Sylphid. So we, Sage and I, will do it. Less than. Greater than okay partner, come on. Without thinking too much, I launched the attack. Ifrit's attacks hadn't stopped for even a second, and he didn't even seem to care about the absurd expenditure of magicals he was having. He just seemed to have made it his main mission to exterminate me, and because of that he wouldn't stop fighting. I've had enough of spirits wanting to kill me. After having dodged most of its attacks, I launched myself directly towards Ifrit, a straight jump that aimed to land on its chest. It was time to end this. Shizue didn't need to suffer with Ifrit having full control of her body, not now that I could understand the suffering she went through having such a cruel creature inside her. Thinking about it, I launched myself. Of course, since I was in the air I had no way to dodge, and having no way to dodge it was impossible for me to dodge the huge condensed fireball that Ifrit threw at me, one that had so much magic that it would release an explosion that must have been 5 or 7 times greater than the previous ones. But I didn't care. Now that the Sage is on my side and I'm thinking calmly, there's nothing I can't do, Sage. Less than initiating evasive action. Greater than just like the Sage did before, he used my skill, Spider's sticky thread, to take me away from the direction of Ifrit's fire. Like my own body, my sticky thread also had my heat resistance, and because of that, it was unaffected by the heat in the area, which was already starting to turn the ground to lava. With that, I threw myself out of the blast and redirected myself, using my threads to throw myself at Ifrit. He didn't seem to be expecting me to recover in midair and so he was surprised. Taking advantage of this moment of surprise, I launched myself towards Ifrit and, in a single stroke, I devoured the superior spirit. He had been defeated. A part of him had been irritated by the fact that he'd been defeated, that all those years inside the human had weakened him to the point where he would have lost to a mere frail slime. After all, what happened to all the pride he felt as a superior spirit? Even so, Ifrit knew that the best decision he could have made, even more so after witnessing the monster's pure murderous intent, was to flee. No normal creature would possess such a killing intent, unless it was an awakened demon lord or creatures of similar power. In the end, anyone could say he was unlucky. Still, Ifrit found it very strange. If his enemy really was an awakened demon lord, then he should have lost the fight much sooner. It's not like a demon lord would have a hard time defeating something like a higher spirit, but not only did that creature's magicals seem too low for the rank, it also seemed to lack skills and abilities that could match that rank. It was just the creature's intent that it was a little, if not a lot, beyond what Ifrit had seen before. Not even his master, Demon Lord Leon Cromwell, had shown that kind of intention. Well, it's just to be expected. Rimuru-chan is quite impressive, don't you think? Finally sensing a presence within this empty space he found himself in, what he had thought to be the separate space created by a skill, Ifrit prepared to launch a blast of flames at the figure until the moment he stopped. Better. Ifrit didn't stop of its own accord. Ifrit froze in fear as he felt the presence that was in the same place as him, a presence, not powerful but growing, that he knew very well. It was dark, just like the feeling he was feeling coming from that slime, but this was different. The one before him was the real thing. I see that the spirits haven't forgotten me, even though so much time has passed. I feel like I should be happy. Ifrit froze. Haven't the spirits forgotten about her? So she's someone who's had some contact with spirits? It couldn't have been a good contact, considering that Ifrit or any other spirit would never have made a contract with a creature that emanates such a monstrous and demonic aura. And then, a moment of realization came to Ifrit. No spirit would contract with that thing. Of course it wouldn't. Just remember how many spirits she had killed in her glory times, millennia ago. Finally, why Ifrit would feel compelled to fight the slime, why any spirit in this world would feel compelled to fight the small, weak, and simple slime, makes sense. It's not about the wishes, orders and advice of the Queen of Fairies, it's not about the fear that the little creature imposes. It's the hatreds and fears of over 1,000 years ago, from the warfare of the spirit world. Ifrit felt tremendous fulfillment upon seeing the tremendous darkness that surrounded him. It wasn't just the alternate space of a slime skill, part of that place was her. That's right, Ifrit-chan. It's me. After so many years, I'm finally back. Ifrit trembled in fear. He needed to get out of here. He needed to warn all the other spirits. He needed everyone to face and stop this thing now while it was still weak. The last thing Ifrit wanted was a repeat of the war of the past, all the losses the spirits had on their side, and the way Guy, the administrator, had to step in and help the battle to stop the deaths before it completely collapsed the spiritual world. But it was impossible. If he had run away at first, then maybe, but now that he was confined. That's right. You failed the most basic mission. I even wanted to devour you, but I can't. Not yet. If I do something now, Rimuru will notice, and she'll seal me away. That would be too unpleasant, she said, with a disappointed expression on her face. It was like a child, one who had lost her birthday cake. But Rimuru feeds me, bit by bit. Soon, I'll have too many souls, and I'll be too strong. In that moment, I'll return to devour you, Ifrit. The presence that was surrounding the flame spirit disappeared, and once again all he could feel was the space he was in, a confined space, and the darkness that had already been absorbed by Rimuru. Knowing he was alone, Ifrit sought a way with which he could leave this place, even if he had to use all of his power or sacrifice a portion of his power. He had to leave this place with that important information. After more than a millennium, Unholy has returned to this world.